Hello, Assalamu alaikum. I hope you can listen to my voice. Is it audible?
Yes, miss.
All right. So, how many of you have joined yet? I think we are still remaining with one more minute. So, we are going to look at the entire analysis of A Wife in London that we did yesterday. We started off with the basics of poetry, but I introduced you to the topic. So, let other students join in. So we're gonna just have to wait for like one more minute. I think I need to begin because as soon as the students are going to come in, then I can recap. All right, Safat, are you listening? Are you there?
Yes.
All right, Chalo, that's really good. So once more, what was this poem about? Let's get started. This poem is about a tragic phase in a woman's life, but we are basically given a peek into a family where there has been a tragic moment that they are struck up with. The entire poem is divided into two parts. The first part is known as the tragedy, and the second part is known as the irony. So we have over here, as you can see, the poem text, which is written. So I need to be very particular about the way the stanzas are going to look like. I did not comment yesterday upon the meter, and specifically which it has to do with the rhyming meters also. So I need to closely look at the entire part now. So let's have a quick look at the poem itself. She sits in the tawny vapor that the city lanes have uprolled, behind whose webby fold on fold like warning taper, the street lamp glimmers cold. A messenger's knock cracks smartly. Flashed news is in her hand, of meaning it dazes to understand, though shaped so shortly. He has fallen in the far south land. So if you notice that in the second stanza we have got the three stress syllables knock, cracks, smartly. So I'm going to comment on this part as well because that kind of like paces up the poem a bit faster as compared to the very first stanza. So have a look at the theme. The theme is talking about the context. So, A Wife in London is an anti war poem that seeks to illuminate absurdity and tragedy that go arm in arm with violent conflict and despair. So, All right, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I think we have a bit of an issue with the internet, but I'm fine and I've joined back. I can see number of students have joined in. I will shortly take your attendance also. But what I am doing today, I am giving you a full length answer as how to write down your own analysis and what are those elements or characteristics which are going to be combined to make your critical commentary or critical analysis of your poetry worth gaining marks. So this is going to be something very, very important. However, there is one thing which I want to emphasize. Everyone should listen to this carefully, that we do not have actual headings when we are writing down the answer. It's just to let you know so that you should be able to write down the little parts, because this is going to be your first analysis. Therefore, the themes, kind of a context, or let's say rhyming, or let's say the use of language in the poem, these are signals to actually attract you towards the different parts or the elements of a poem to analyze. So let's get started. Initially, what I did, I actually read a bit of the poem. So, in order to recap, yesterday was just an overview. Today, it's in the depth analysis. So, here we have a document which I've shared on the screen. I hope everyone can look at it. So, can I ask Mahnoor to please read the first two stanzas now that you have all joined together, and then we can go to the themes and gradually to the different parts of the analysis.
Okay, miss.
So you'll be
Shall I
reading
start?
from, yes, please read from here.
Okay. She sits in the tawny vapor that the city lanes have uprolled, behind whose webby fold on fold, like a tawning taper, the street lamp glimmers cold. A messenger's knocks cracks smartly, flashed news is in her hand, of meaning it dazes to understand, though shaped so shortly
Shape so.
he has fallen in the far southland.
So we basically read it yesterday, but I needed to make one point very clear, that I'm going to create a difference today between two terms, and one is called consonant sounds and the other one is going to be assonance sound. So you have to wait for that moment. I can just give you a hint. You can see that towards the end we've got a lot of O sounds, up rolled and fold and fold, and even here we have a sound as well. We have cold. So certain elements we call them assonance. Assonance are those sounds which have a combination of vowel sounds. So I'm gonna make you understand this part. So you need to be very careful when you are reading the overall analysis of it. So I have this part which is a bit of a context, and I finished till here, but I want to just restart rereading from here. It is a message. This poem is a message. Particularly, this poem is a message of war's hopelessness, how war cuts life short needlessly, affecting not just those immediately involved, but those back home as well. So I said it's almost like a murder to the family. You're not killing one person as a soldier, it's not the death of one soldier. The poem argues that war is not just tragic but also unnecessary, and suggests that people are wrong to think of war as something noble or heroic. So over here, suffering doesn't give you anything to word celebrate someone's heroic, characteristic or attribute. The poem is almost like a story. It's a tale told in two sections which concern two very different pieces of communication. So, what is happening that in this first section, you will have a wife receiving news of her husband's death in a battle. In the second set, the next day, this is the next day, she receives a letter from the husband himself. The mismatch in the content and timing between the official telegram that is the letter, and the husband's letter develop the poem's central message of war's absurd hopelessness. So it's not only tragic at the same time, but it talks about how it hits hard with ultimate hopelessness. Do we have Safad, not Safad, Azhar Khalid over here? Do we have Azhar?
Yes,
Okay, Azhar, do you agree with this part that wars have never given anything to any country? It has been completely a waste of time, energy, investment. At the same time, it has taken humanity from people. Do you agree with this part? What Hardy is trying to pose with this poem? To a certain extent, do you have any idea how do you perceive war
yeah, I agree with it for the most part.
for the most part, and which part you don't agree, you think it's quite dramatic, it could have been a bit better, or like which part?
No, I mean,
Sorry, your mic is bit a mute. Your mic.
sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it isn't.
Sometimes it is necessary, but it depends upon different situations. Now, the most important point, again, I'm looking at the context. Summary, I'm not going to go through the summary again, but I'm going to do the technical parts over here. So we have, the poem has a domestic setting. This is important. Domestic setting because it all starts with the house, and a woman has been positioned right over there, focusing on a wife whose husband, um I would request Azhar Khalid to start reading from here till the end of death, a horrible death, so that we can have a critical analysis and how the words have been phrased. So over to you, Azhar.
The poem has a domestic setting, focusing on a wife whose husband has gone to war, in this case to fight for Britain in the Boer War. Her isolation is established from the beginning as she sits in the murky fog of Victorian London. The setting suggests that decisions to go to war take place in the kind of moral fog. This is that is, war makes mortality itself unclear. The wife is a passive figure. She takes no action. Things only happen to her. Her helplessness then maybe stand in for mankind's inability to stop itself from going to war. When news comes of her husband's death, the short message uses the euphemistic fallen to mask what was probably a horrible death.
I love this last comment specifically. You must have heard people, um, God forbid, anywhere wherever you came across someone's demise, and when people are using really politely, in the most polite form, they are saying, someone has passed away. Um, and, in this case, you're using the word, I mean, Hardy has used the word fallen for basically death. So we call this euphemism, and this is euphemistically used in order to mask, cover up the shock. I mean, in one of the ways, why? Because Hardy is known for implicitness. Please try to understand one thing. Hardy is not a writer who would explicitly, just give you everything right over there. He would rather give you prompts and hints, and through that, he makes his points clear. And this adds up to more of an element of mysteriousness or suspense. I hope you agree with this point of view. Do you think that there is some sort of, anticipation or mysteriousness that is added by the end of the, first part? This is so true with it. Then we are proceeding. We are not going to read the whole thing together, but I did explain you what do we mean by euphemism, and we just highlighted right over here. Now, in the poem's second event, this is called the structure. The structure, as in like between the themes, how it has been divided. Now, before we proceed with the second part, do we have another volunteer who can read for us the second part from here, the irony? Tis the morrow. So let me just quickly check the students over here. I have Aliza. Aliza, hello, beta. Adorable Aliza. Okay. I want you to better read these two stanzas so that we can proceed with it.
Okay.
Just
'Tis the morrow, the fogs hang thicker, the postman nears and goes. A letter is brought whose lines disclose by the firelight flicker his hand, whom the worm now knows. Fresh, firm, penned in highest feather, page full of his hope return, and of home planned jaunts by break and burn in the summer weather, and of new love that they would learn.
I really like the highs and lows of your voice, and you read it in the most soft, I mean, quite softly, so that it definitely goes with the situation of the poem as well. And it was a very good push and a powerful start the way Mahnood read it. So I'm really happy you people are very engaging in this class. So we're looking at the second part over here in the second event, but it should be till together, okay? In the poem's second event, the wife receives a letter from her husband the next day because of the slowness of mail as opposed to the speed of underwater cable enabled telegrams. This communication is effectively from the grave. That means right after he was buried, so this letter was delivered to the lady. The letter is full of hope. This is the irony. This letter is full of hope in the most hopeless situation. This is the opposite. This is the reversal of expectation. When she actually knows that her husband has passed away, he has fallen, being shot or dead, and then she received this letter. So, but of course, war has cut this young life short to promise of good times to come only. So I think this part is so far really, really clear. So we're going to proceed further with some of the technical parts. And we are going to look at line number 3 and 6. Okay. Line number 3 and 6. Now, there are a lot of techniques which are going to be introduced. So we're going to read from here. Line number 3 to 6, it primarily developed the image introduced in the opening. Line number 4 picks up on the ethereal look of the fog. Please notice that, just like William Wordsworth, Thomas Hardy was the poet of nature. There is one student who sent me a bit of an introduction, Safat. Yeah. So I want you, when you're writing, that Thomas Hardy was a novelist, but at the same time, I mean, he's equally known for his poems as well. So don't forget to write his profession as a poet. So you can mention him as a poet as well. Now, here comes the whole language deal, use of language. In the adjective webby, it suggests that it is in thin and complex like a spider's web. I will stop right over here and I'm going to make you write down some of the techniques by which you can improvise your own details of writing or making up a comment. So you have to open up your notebook. Everyone, please open up your notebook, beta. Give the heading how to create effects. What kind of language we need to use when it comes to creating effects. All right. So let's get started. I hope you can look at this part. I have zoomed in. Okay. So here we are. How you need to create effects. Creating effects whenever you are given a poem. This is going to be suitable for the poetry section as well as for your novel, or let's say for your drama section. any text that you're dealing with, beta, you have to have an idea. Before you create any effect, you need to keep in mind this acronym, PQC. What do we mean by PQC? You need to first of all make up a point. Point about what? About how is the character feeling, how the narrator has informed about the certain situation. So point is going to be based upon what is the main idea. What is the main idea? Is there a new point? Point means the concept. You're reading a poem and you came across a new concept and you feel like, okay, this is important, I need to comment on it. So you are writing about, for example, the tone or the idea or the point that you're creating is about the tone of the poem. So who is going to tell me the tone? Tone is basically the voice of the poet. So what is the tone like? What is the tone like? It's dull, it's melancholic, it's sad, it's tragic, it's loaded with um, heartbreak, or almost like making her feel pale. So some of the other ways you're basically looking at the point, and then you are going to give us a quote. When you say the person feels sad, or the lady has been struck by a shocking news, so you have to quote. Quote is given to provide as an evidence. This is the proof that you need to give. Now, the most important thing is the quotation that you're lifting up has to be written in inverted commas, and it has to be really precise, beta. It has to be precise. That means you're lifting up a word or a phrase or even a little part of a sentence. Is it clear? A little part of a sentence. You're not exactly copying the chunks of the lines, because the examiner will think that you are basically replacing your original analysis with the copying of the lines, that you're shorter words and you're copying loads and loads of lines. So we are not going to do that. You have to identify a main point. For example, in the first part where she is sitting, so the setting, the location, there will be a main point. It's a domestic setting. This is your main point. Then you will quote. For example, you will lift up that very part where the home is written, in her home, right? So that will be quote. Now comes the real deal, which is a comment. Comment is basically carrying the maximum marks. Number one, it is the impact upon the reader. Impact upon the reader. So how do you think this particular point is making you feel? So there is a certain way to use language when it comes to creating a point. We need to be avoiding repetition. Please avoid repetition over here. Instead of saying again and again, this line creates an effect of sadness, or let's say dullness, or any other parts that you wish to comment upon, right? So again and again, you don't have to say this. Instead, you can say, I'm using it. You can also use any, it suggests. Number three, it implies. It suggests, it implies, it indicates, it symbolizes. Number six, it symbolizes, or it conjures up. Now, this part will only be used when you are making 2 points together, or perhaps you are towards the end of the comment, or let's say you have reached towards the end of the poetry analysis and you're saying, oh, these collectively, these all together. So you're going to say it conjures up as a conclusion to the poem, or perhaps you're saying it conjures up as an idea or as an insight into the reality of a war situation. There are some more as well. For example, it could be implies, indicates, yes, it signifies, it represents, it represents. Examiner is hunting for these expressions. Wherever such words are going to appear right after this, examiner would know that you are making up a comment, and that's how you will be given awarded maximum marks. Making comments give you maximum marks, whereas when it comes to uh, creating a quotation or making up a point, these are known for understanding. All right, you were reading a poem, you understood a point, and now you are creating a, you're giving an evidence. But the real deal is how you actually comment. So your analysis, the entire document is loaded with a lot of effects. Is it clear? Is it clear, beta?
Yes, miss.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Have you copied this down as well?
Can you scroll up?
Yes, miss.
Yes. Azhar, you were actually talking about this part?
No, miss, can you scroll up?
Okay. Where? From here, PQC. So you remember this acronym PQC, PQC? And just one little wise advice that I'm trying to drop over here. Let me just add up one little part. I hope, Azhar, you have seen that part, because I completely switched to another page, beta. Okay, so I hope you can actually look at the screen, and after you're done with PQC, examiner is saying don't forget to connect it once you have created your comment. Just a little bit, explain your comment, explain your effect. How do you do this? By linking it with the context of the poem. Now that you're going to read it, and I will make you understand. All right, this is a point, it's a quote, it's a comment. Explain. You have to use E. If you add E right over here, that, why are we adding it? Why? Because of the development of your answer, your understanding, development of your answer as well as understanding. And then how will you switch to the new point? By right from here, how will you switch to the new point? You will be using linking words. Also, it is interesting to note that the second section of the poem has a little caption which says irony. Well, it is basically the thematic highlight given to the later part of the poem. Irony. So also it is interesting to note that, or you can use moreover. So basically, I mean any kind of conjunction or conjunctions acting as linking words to further engage the element of explanation in your answer. Matlab, you are going to just keep on developing. Follow the chain. PQC linking word, PQC linking word, and that's how you will be able to write down a lot of ways in which the poems are being taught. But the best way is to understand the structure of your writing. I may be showing you a ready-made analysis, but at the same time, you will be saying, all right, if I have to write it down by myself, how will I structure it? So this is a structure that you would be looking at. I hope this is clear. I
Yes, I
haven't
have one
checked.
question.
Yes, beta, Aliza, you're absolutely
Mahnur.
right. Sorry, Aliza had made up a point about, I'll just take your answer. She says it depicts. Thank you, beta. You can add it in your list also. It depicts, it portrays. Thank you. Okay. Now, yes, Mahnur, I'm all ears, but I'm listening.
Miss, I had a question. In the part that we have to quote an evidence, like it could be a word as well, then what will be the difference between that quote part and the adding context from the poem part?
No. Okay. This, for example, is going to be a comment. Let's say you have quoted at the top. I think we should go back to the poem so that I can lift it up for you. Okay, I'm sharing the screen so
Okay,
that
Miss.
you should be able to look at. Let me just take you a bit towards the poem. Yes, if you look at this point, you look at this point. I hope you look at this point, right?
Yes, Miss.
So I've halfly like, but you can understand. Now this is a point, the slowness of the assonant vowel sounds. I just told you that a word in which you have a vowel sound, A, E, I, O, U, any sort of vowel sound, it is going to be called as assonance or assonant sound. So this is a point I identified. Okay, this is an assonance. In the phrase sits, you look at it. This is your what? This is a quotation. I used a conjunction and I added up one more. In, a tawny, and vapor. So there are three different lines or one same line from where you can lift up a word and then you can quote. So this has been quoted. There, here they have used open bracket and close bracket. It is not at all necessary, so don't worry about it. Also helps us to conjure this idea of the smog. It's a very foggy atmosphere. The idea of the smog enveloping the city. This is your comment. This is further development and forming a kind of inescapable confusion. You want to develop this point. After this, you will be writing, which is described in the overall idea of the first stanza. Not every time it is required to connect with the context, but in case if you are describing about the pace of the poem, for example, when you have vowel sounds, they're always elaborative. A, E, I, O, U. For example, if I'm saying roaring, if I'm saying room, it's elaborate, right? It's a bit elaborate. It creates a moaning effect. Vowel sounds usually create moaning effect because they have O's to it, as if someone is in pain. And then, and then consonant sounds create rather a very crisp effect. Sometimes where you come across C, for example, that the city lanes have uprolled, behind whose webby fold on fold, like a warning taper, the street lamp glimmers cold. But this stanza is very much dominated by the vowel sounds. You can see this is assonance, double E, street, lamp. They're showing that it's unsteady at the very beginning of the day. People are still asleep, but here is one lady who is awake. So you can always connect with the context. However, they have shown this part over here. They're connecting with the entire context of the poem, which talks about the futility of war, the waste of war. is developed as much by what is left out of the poem as by what is present. That is, there is a notable lack of any heroism or honor. There is no patriotic language nor any suggestion. How does their brain work so well that they write poems with such deep meanings, and even the words used give a meaning and can even make them rhyme? I think every person who becomes a poet or who has the heart to or passion to write a poem is a major I think the major contribution comes from your experiences. And your experiences could be harsh, could be melodramatic. So I think they very well incorporate that. It's kind of a gifted talent. But anyone can now write down a free thinking poem, a freestyle poem, which is not even rhyming. They go when a poem is rhyming towards the end, it means the person has accepted the death of a person. Acceptance has eventually come. It's not in the first part, it's in the second part. Mahnoor beta, let me proceed further so that you can understand even in a better way. Okay? This
Sure,
is your
miss.
this is your first time that you're dealing with it. Okay, so let's say line number 1 and 2, the tragedy, she sits in the tawny vapor. So Hardy is a passive person. He believes in passivity. Passivity means that everything is going to be ending up in the negative way or implicit, indirectly. He loves to describe indirectly. I don't know what is this fascination for Hardy to write down something which is indirect. Azhar, do you have any comment for this? Do you have any comment? Why do writers would go for writing um, indirectly, not telling me that someone is dead explicitly? Why do you think people use this technique? I'm asking everyone
Miss,
because it
Miss
makes. Mhm,
probably to engage people and make them curious,
mhm.
so as to find out. That's why they're making um, using different words like the tawny vapor and stuff that people get curious to find out why she's sitting matlab, in
Yes,
that
fog, and in every part, beta, fog is a symbol of
grief and
confusion. It's
yeah.
basically a baffling it can also indicate the disorder in life also, where she's not able to see clearly and something is about to happen. It's eerie at the same time. When it's cold, it's eerie also. Tawny vapor, right over here, when you look at this part, tawny vapor describes a very specific type of fog, particular to London at the time. I'm telling you again, this fog has a very serious way of looking at it because it was in the background of industrial revolution. It's much more a polluted air that he is referring to, and therefore he is developing a some sort of a theme of seen versus unseen. Her intuition is quite sharp enough. She knows in her heart something is about to happen, and that is drumming on her head. It was partly mist from the river, but mostly consisted of emissions from chimneys and factories. That is why I gave you a bit of an elaborate um, overview of Hardy's outlook in writing his own poems. It had a particular yellow brown tinge to the fog, which earned it in the unappetizing nickname of Piso, and it was also known as smog. Now, this is a new word that has been coined, combining smoke and fog, and now we have a new word which is called smog. Its presence here is a kind of pathetic fallacy. Everyone write down this because you don't know the meaning. It's a technical term, pathetic fallacy. Please write it down. Pathetic fallacy, anything in nature which is a symbol of a chaos in real life. For example, a character is walking in the middle of the road and there's a storm. It's raining heavily, it's pouring down heavily. So I would say that perhaps the nature is crying with the sorrows of the man. This is called pathetic fallacy. In poetry, this is a common technique which is used to compare the, let's say, to the troublesome situations of the person compared to the setting of the sun in the sky, perhaps anything that has to do with natural imagery, with anything with nature perhaps. If you're talking about a luscious green garden is a symbol of heavenly feel. Garden is a symbol of a paradise. So the person who is standing in it perhaps having a very productive moment. So it's a very positive experience. But when you say soldiers are leaving for the war, soldiers are leaving for the war, and in behind in the poem you see the sun is setting, that means that their life is about to be over. Getting the point? The situation, the real life situation, will be compared with the natural elements: sun, wind, water, air. Now
Miss,
explicitly these, yes beta.
When we are talking about pathetic fallacy, are we only talking about chaos?
Not exactly, not exactly, because they would ultimately be asking you to look at some of the positive parts. However, the poems are quite tragic. No, it is not necessary that we are only looking at the negative part or the harsh experiences. No, not at all. It can be, let me just show you how we can exactly, more examples of pathetic fallacy. Yes. So you have written pathetic fallacy, and it has to be, the real life experiences. I'm putting a bracket over here because it depends. There is one situation, one experience, or perhaps possible different, and which is going to be compared, or there will be a parallel drawn with the natural imagery. So it has all of these elements, like, we're talking about the sky, sun, or I just told you that it could be like air, water, fire, but it's, sun is going to be this way also. Pathetic fallacy usually comes with most of the tragic scenarios, most of the tragic scenarios. In this case, fog is building up confusion that she just received, that she, you know has not been able to accept her husband's death. So it's adding up confusion, but more than that, you need to describe it a bit more in the background of, industrial revolution, how the entire society had been impacted in the negative way. In the, it has taken the beauty of nature, it has taken the beauty of London even. So it's almost like Hardy is complaining. Hardy is not happy over here. Hardy is saying why, because he believes in destiny, he believes in circumstances or fate. So industrial revolution, he looks at it as a flaw in a society. So how he is comparing with the lady's situation who is receiving London. So you have a primary situation, then you have the secondary situation, and then you have pathetic fallacy. You have all the way pathetic fallacy. the symbolic situation. So it's ultimately like linked up. You have, it starts with lady situation, then we're looking at the background. Okay, there is fog, but there's more than that. As if her thoughts have been polluted by the fear of losing her husband. So it's in that way. Concept is important. Document you will receive ultimately. You will read it and you will get to understand, but you will keep on asking yourself, all right, what was pathetic fallacy? What was assonance? What is consonant? All right. Please understand wherever you come across consonant sounds have the ability to create more or less kind of like suffocating effect or choking effect. If you come across k, like c sounds, or k, like c will be sounded like k, so choking, suffocating effect. There are other ways we are going to look at the poem as well. So assonance, I believe that you have understood. Assonance deal with the vowel sounds. If you come across the vowel sounds, and then we have the consonant sounds, um, F sound, any other way you look at it. Is there any question over here? As soon as I will be moving in between my poem and the document, you will be able to understand even better. So I want to go towards a little part where I think that there's more for uh, eh, there's more room for information. The irony, 'tis the morrow, the fog hangs thicker, the postman nears and goes. Here begins the second section of the poem, which promises to add the irony to the tragedy of the husband's death. The use of caesura after morrow marks, this is caesura. You see this semicolon? But we call this, which is not mentioned in this document, please note it down. This is called weak caesura. There is a strong caesura and there is a weak caesura. I tell you the difference between both. Mostly, if you come across a colon by the end of the line, this is the strong caesura. Caesura means a pause, a strong one or a weaker one. 'Tis the morrow, semicolon. I'm not saying that semicolon is a weak caesura. All I'm saying it's in between the line, therefore it turns out to be weaker as compared to the end of line. Make sure semicolon can also be by the end of the line also. It's not about colon and semicolon. Wherever I'm going to see, I will call it a caesura. No. If it is in between the line, it turns out to be weaker caesura, has less tendency to pause rather than a greater tendency to stop here. So why is it being used? It says marks the fact that this is not just a new day, but rather one in which everything has changed. The intensity of the fog increases to match the sorrow of the wife's state of mind, again demonstrating pathetic fallacy. As with the first stanza, the two lines here uses consonants to conjure that thickness with g sounds. Please notice the g sounds are easier to pronounce, beta. The g sounds are easier to pronounce. In gloom, it's g sound. It's adding difficulty. Please write it down. Please write it down. The g sound, let's put it this way, wherever you make g sound, it's always adding up more difficulty for the reader to pronounce. That shows up. You have to notice, beta Manur, check it out. How you're going to link it with the context. It's a difficult obstacle that which she is, she's standing in front of a very complex obstacle in front of her. What to do? She has no clue how she's going to proceed in her life, as if But she comes to term accepting his death also. You see, comment has been created, is becoming more and more impenetrable, signifying the way in which the wife is enveloped in her sudden grief. Grief, gloom, all of these synonyms are being used, beta. All of these are synonyms. So it's 8:53 and I need to stop at 8:55 because I will be taking up definitely one more. I need to connect with the new class as well. So last 2 minutes, beta, I'm going to share this document. You read it and you write down as many questions as much as possible so that we can share with each other. By the way, needed to tell you the next poem that we will be doing, I will do 2 poems and then I will switch to drama section so that we should have a bit of variety rather than just we are going on and on with the poems. I need to juggle my classes with drama as well as I will take 2 components together in that way. So far, you have understood the concepts that we have read. You can
Yes,
write in the
miss.
okay. Azhar, is it all good, beta?
Yes, miss.
Okay. Safat, hello. Safat, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Any point, anything that you want to create about this poem? What is your last and first and last impression about a wife in London? You never thought a wife would be so much surrounded by a whirl of drama. Did you think that this way? Any point that you wish to create over here?
I think Thomas Hardy hates war.
Um, uh, the thing that Thomas Hardy hates what?
Wars.
Hates, yes, he definitely hated wars. Yes, yes. Nobody actually liked it as a solution to any problem. It has given nothing but emptiness. So, by the way, we just come to one more point, the war within this character, the lady, and the war outside. So, that's the end of the class. Thank you very much. You have been quite interestingly engaged. So, looking forward for tomorrow's class. Take care of yourself. Bye bye.
Allah Hafiz, miss.
Allah
Allah
Hafiz.
Hafiz.
Love this.